South Africa is now the epicenter of a political storm, and all eyes are on Washington and Pretoria as tensions over land reform and foreign policy spiral into a full-scale diplomatic confrontation. At the heart of the controversy is South Africa's new Expropriation Act, adopted in early 2025. Designed to allow the state to reclaim land in the public interest, including in some cases without compensation, the law aims to address generations of systemic dispossession. For many South Africans, it is long overdue justice. But for others, especially critics abroad, it's a red flag signaling instability and looming economic consequences. In February, former US President Donald Trump, who remains a dominant figure in Republican politics and a likely 2024 presidential nominee, issued a blistering social media statement that reignited old tensions. South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly, he claimed, vowing to suspend all US aid to South Africa until a full investigation was completed. The post drew praise from conservative circles and alarm from foreign policy analysts, instantly sending shockwaves through diplomatic channels. South Africa's government immediately pushed back. President Cyril Ramaphosa publicly rejected claims of land seizures, emphasizing that the new Expropriation Act was passed within the bounds of constitutional oversight, subject to legal review, and modeled on frameworks in other democratic societies. He argued that the goal of the law was restorative justice, not revenge. No land had been seized without due process, and no race group was being targeted. Yet the diplomatic damage had already been done. What followed was a sharp escalation in political rhetoric and retaliatory maneuvers. Trump's administration announced a fast-track refugee visa program for white South African farmers, referred to in U.S. political circles as Afrikaner refugees. The program, framed as humanitarian protection from race-based violence, was hailed by far-right groups and condemned by South African leaders as an insult to the nation's democratic progress. The visa rollout was accompanied by a media blitz, citing alleged farm murders, land grabs, and persecution of minorities. Many of the claims were exaggerated or debunked, but the narrative gained traction in conservative media. Tensions further escalated when South Africa filed a genocide complaint against Israel at the International Court of Justice. The move, seen as part of South Africa's broader support for the Palestinian cause, sparked fierce condemnation in Washington. American lawmakers across the aisle accused Pretoria of siding with global adversaries and undermining long-standing diplomatic ties. Republican and Democratic senators introduced the U.S. South Africa Bilateral Relations Review Act, a bill calling for a full reassessment of military cooperation, trade agreements, and aid programs. Amid this storm, former U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced he would boycott the G20 foreign ministers meeting held in Johannesburg. The decision was symbolic but potent, Washington's top envoy choosing to snap South Africa's leadership during one of the most high-profile international gatherings of the year. In response, China issued a statement backing South Africa's G20 presidency, adding to the geopolitical tug-of-war over Pretoria's alignment. The Global South rallied behind South Africa's stand, while the West closed ranks in criticism. Then came the Oval Office meeting between Trump and Ramaphosa. What was meant to be a closed-door attempt to ease tensions turned into yet another political spectacle. Trump confronted Ramaphosa with a folder of graphic images, claiming they showed evidence of systematic killings of white farmers. However, it was later revealed that many of the images had originated from conflict zones in the Democratic Republic of Congo and were completely unrelated to South Africa. The credibility of the U.S. president's claims began to unravel. After the meeting, Ramaphosa described the talks as constructive, noting that despite the political theater, agreements were made to continue dialogue on trade, investment, and security cooperation. But U.S. aid remained suspended. South African officials admitted that the diplomatic wounds were deep and might not heal anytime soon. Back at home, the ANC government framed the meeting as proof of their principal foreign policy. In the U.S., conservative media outlets celebrated the administration's hardline stance as a victory for Western civilization. This diplomatic standoff is about more than just land, it represents a broader clash of ideologies. On one side is South Africa, positioning itself as a champion of the global South, pushing back against neo-colonial structures, and aligning with China, Russia, and pro-Palestinian movements. On the other is the United States, particularly under Trump's leadership, seeing these moves as a rejection of Western liberalism and a threat to global stability. The language of human rights, sovereignty, and democracy has become weaponized in a geopolitical chess game. For ordinary South Africans, the consequences are immediate. Suspended aid has impacted crucial HIV/AIDS programs, non-profit funding, and educational exchanges. Development projects have stalled, and tensions have spread from foreign ministries to university campuses and civil society groups. For a country already reeling from economic hardship, energy crises, and unemployment, the loss of U.S. support could be catastrophic. For many Americans, South Africa is fast becoming a symbol of ideological defiance. In conservative circles, it is portrayed as a country sliding into chaos, hostile to Western values, and indifferent to the fate of its white minority. In progressive spaces, South Africa is often defended as a sovereign nation navigating a complex post-colonial path. But regardless of viewpoint, one fact is undeniable: South African relations have entered a new and more fragile chapter. The global balance of power is shifting, and South Africa is at the crossroads. Its future foreign policy decisions will determine not only its alliances but also its ability to navigate pressure from global superpowers. Can South Africa maintain its independence while safeguarding its economy? Can the United States respect the sovereignty of a democratic ally, even when it takes uncomfortable stances? For now, the rhetoric continues to boil, the sanctions loom, and the people of South Africa are left watching a slow-motion diplomatic standoff unfold, one with real stakes, real costs, and real questions about what kind of world we are building. If you want fearless coverage of South Africa's most urgent political flashpoints, hit that subscribe button now. SA Unfiltered brings you closer to the heart of the nation's power struggles, with no agenda, no censorship, and no sugarcoating. This is where you come for context, clarity, and the stories that the mainstream won't touch. Turn on notifications, join the movement, and let your voice be part of the conversation. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should South Africa stick to its principles even if the West walks away? Or is it time for Pretoria to choose diplomacy over defiance? Let the world know what South Africans really think. Unfiltered.